Howdy Beans, and welcome back to another exciting episode of the Howdy Beans podcast. I'm your host, Luke, the silly goose. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're all good. As per usual, today we're going to be looking at the 2014 The Wild Robot by DreamWorks. But before we get into all of that and more, I want to do a bit of housekeeping because I like to keep my house nice and clean. So make sure that you follow me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at howdybeans_pod. If you listen to this on YouTube, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And finally, if you listen to this on Spotify on your mobile phone, don't forget to leave me a follow and to rate the podcast 5 stars. So, as I mentioned today, and we're looking at The Wild Robot. There is many reasons why we're looking at this movie today, which I will get into very, very shortly. But first of all, I want to talk about the movie synopsis. So, short synopsis today. So after a shipwreck, an intelligent robot is stranded on an uninhabited island. To survive the harsh surroundings, she bonds with the native animals and cares for an orphan baby goose. The film was nominated for 3 Oscars. So that is the synopsis for the movie. So the reason why I'm looking at Wild Robot is because I am one big sour gummy bear. And what I mean by that is the fact of, let me take you back to last year. So one of the best animated movies that I watched last year, and so much so that when it came out on Blu-ray, I bought it and it has a pride and joy space on my shelf. That movie is Transformers 1. I absolutely love and adored that movie. I won't go into it majorly because that's a completely different episode, and I did do a review on that movie. But the long and short of it is, I'm a huge Transformers fan, and Transformers 1 was the movie that I've been waiting for my whole life. It was that Transformers film. It did what I always wanted to do. It took it back to basics. It took it back to Cybertron, about the Autobots and the Decepticons, and about Cybertron, and that's what I wanted. Get rid of the humans, just a proper story with Cybertronians. And I got that in spades. It was beautiful. It was gorgeous. It was heartfelt. It was deep. It was marketed wrong as a kids' movie, but it was a lot deeper than that. And since then, I've been campaigning for it and telling people to watch it because nobody went to go see it, sadly. Anyway, so that is that. The reason why I am sour is the fact of, because that movie flopped and nobody went to go see it, everybody went to go see The Wild Robot, which, again, I've heard nothing but good things about it, and that it was wonderful, and that it's been nominated and won loads of awards. And then you also have, as well as The Wild Robot, you have the movie Flow, which, in my opinion, came out of nowhere. I'd never heard anything about it, and then when award season come around, it was winning all the animated awards. Everybody was talking about it. I think it won the Oscar for Best Animated Movie this year. And it was just one of those where, I'll be honest, I was a big sourpuss. I sat there and I went, this is not fair. This is not right. Like, these films are probably, again, because I haven't seen them, probably incredibly wonderful. But Transformers deserves at least a nomination. And that's what killed me the most, was that the movie never got a nomination. So, like a big baby, I sat there and went, that's it. No, I'm not going to do it. I'm not interested. Like, I'll get around to the movies when I get around to them, but I don't want to watch them. And I was a real sour bag for a while. And then the Oscars come around, and Flow won sort of the Oscar for Best Animated Movie, and The Wild Robot, that won loads of awards. And I sat there and I thought, you know what? I could sit here and be negative, and I could be really sort of against it, but you know what? Let's give it a go. Let's give these films a watch. Let's see what everybody else saw. Why did people go see this movie and Flow instead of Transformers? Like, what was it? Was it the marketing? Was it the trailer? Was it the voice cast? What made those films so good and powerful? And that's basically what I'm trying to do here, is the fact of, I want to watch them and review them like I do normally, and just to kind of see what they're all about, and to understand why they were so loved by people, to be honest, because I don't like being negative. I don't want to sit here for the rest of my life and go, oh, Transformers 1 should have won. Like, no, yes, I love that movie and I'll defend it. But sadly it didn't, and I can't live in that. I can't live in a world where it did win and it got more recognition. I've got to live in the real world. So that's what I want to do with this review. and my review of Flow is that I want to look into these films and I want to get an understanding of what I missed, of why they were so loved and why they won so many awards. So that's what I am trying to do today, and I will do with Flow. So that is the reason behind this review, and obviously the review that will come later. So anyway, that's getting me off my high horse and explaining on to the actual review part of itself. So Wild Robot, the cast is pretty brilliant, to be honest. I have to admit. So you've got Lupita Nyong'o as Roz, as the main character, Pedro Pascal as Fink, Kit Connor as Bright Bill, Bill Knightley, which we all know how much of a big fan I am of Bill, as Longneck, Stephanie Huss, if this sort of pronounce the last name, I do apologize, but she plays Veronica. Matt Berry, who's a huge Matt Berry fan, as Padla, Vig Rhymes as Thunderbolt, Mark Hamill as Thorn, Kathleen O'Hara as Pinktail, Boone Storm as Baby Bright Bill, Alexander Novell as Snowdrop. You've got Ralphie Alfred Jangoro, again, do apologize, as Peck. You've got a pretty stacked cast here, to be honest. And I remember watching the trailer for this and just being like, "Oh God, that looks amazing, that looks beautiful." And like, one thing that I loved about it, and from watching the trailer, was that one thing I've been saying for years, and it seems like DreamWorks are starting to do that, is that with like Pixar and Disney, they were trying to they went past the idea of hand-drawn animation. Things were going so technical and so sort of realistic looking that a lot of animated movies kind of lost their uniqueness, in my opinion. They all sort of looked the same and felt the same. And I've always been sort of saying for years that what a lot of animated studios should do is go back to that hand-drawn style. Even if it's done in a way of CGI, they should go back into feeling hand-drawn, into making it feel like when you look at it, it looks handmade, really. And that's what this movie looks like. And they did it with the new Puss in Boots movie, Last Wish, which, again, if you haven't seen that movie, it's absolutely brilliant. And the way that they handle death and the character of death is one of the best villains done in years. And that was another movie that didn't really get as much appreciation as it deserved to get, to be honest. But I digress. Like, that movie was gorgeous, and it looked hand-drawn, and it was really pushing the boundaries, and DreamWorks really did something different with it. And then when I watched the trailer for Wild Robot, and I'm watching it now while I'm talking about this because it's playing on IMDb at the moment. It looks hand drawn. It looks creative. It looks different. It looks beautiful. It looks unique, and that is the main crux of it. Really, is the fact of it looks unique. It looks different. It doesn't look like anything else I've seen before, and that is what's really drawing me in. So for that, I'm quite excited. As for the production, so development, on September the 28th, 2023, DreamWorks Animation announced an animated film adaptation of the book series The Wild Robot by Peter Brown, with Chris Sanders set to write and direct, Jeff Harmon set to produce, and Sanders' longtime creative collaborator, Dean DeBlos, set to serve as executive producer. Our crew members were announced, including production designer Raymond Zibach and editor Mary Blee and head of story Heidi Joe Gilbert. Sanders first encountered Brown's book through his daughter, though he never read it himself. Years later, while looking for his next project at DreamWorks, Sanders was offered an opportunity to direct an adaptation of the book for the studio. Upon reading it, Sanders immediately fell in love with the story and felt he was the right person to adapt it to film. He described the book as deceptively simple and emotionally complex. Sanders had previously considered the idea of creative bonding with animals in a forest for his directorial debut, Lilo and Stitch, which I absolutely love Lilo and Stitch. Sanders contacted Brown and would later describe the phone call as critical to the film's development. Brown told the production team that his intended theme for the book was that kindness could be a survival skill. Sanders sought to weave that theme through the film and felt he achieved that goal. Another theme in the story that Sanders was drawn to was that of motherhood. He felt he had never done a story of this nature before. Changes were made to the book story for the film. In the book, Roz is in constant search of a task, but also in the wrong place and with no one to give her tasks. Sanders felt that she risks becoming monotonous at points in the story, so he strived to make Roz constantly interesting and compelling throughout. Some character roles from the book were reduced in order to give others more substantial screen time and impact. The changes to the characters and their roles were also made to prevent the film from overcrowding. As for casting, so casting members Lupita Nyong'o, Petra Pascal, Kathleen O'Hara, Bill Knightley, Kit Connor, Mark Hamill, Matt Berry, and Vig Rhymes were revealed on March the 5th, 2024, and the release of the film's first trailer. Sanders wanted Roz to be a compelling character and felt an extraordinary voice performance was necessary to achieve this. He wanted to avoid a two-dimensional fictional take on a robot where they go straight from being emotionless to emotional. Nyong'o's was tasked with finding a voice for the character and evolving it as the story progressed. The actress's role was particularly important as Roz did not possess facial articulation. This meant Nyong'o's voice was the main way of signaling Roz's emotions. According to Hamill, who voiced Thorn, he learned about the film after reading the book The Wild Robot. Hamill says that the Wild Robot remained reminding him of his first feelings about Star Wars, in which he originated the role of Luke Skywalker. That's a real that's a big compliment, to be honest. So that's got me a bit more excited. As for animation design, so this part is for me the most exciting part. So The Wild Robot would be the final film to be animated entirely in-house at DreamWorks. As Cartoon Brew reported on October the 6th, 2023, that the studio would be shifting away from producing films in-house in their Glendale campus to relying more heavily on outside studios after 2024. Additional character rigging was done by French studio Stim Studio. After reading the book, Sanders felt the story's innocent tone and natural setting required a look that strayed away from the standard CGI photorealism in many modern animated films. Again, hit the nail right on the head. Too many films are going for that photorealism look. You need to go back to basics. You need to be a lot more unique, basically. And I'm glad he noticed that from looking at the source material and realizing instead of doing what everybody else does, let's stick to the uniqueness. Let's stick to the feel of the book, which I absolutely love. He and production designer Raymond Zilbach wanted the film in its finished state to still resemble the concept paintings. To achieve this, the production team built upon the technologies used in two of DreamWorks' earlier films, Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, which again is underrated, and The Bad Guys. Haven't seen it, didn't hear positive things about it, but maybe I'll get around to watching it. But they both came out in 2022. While the characters were made up of CGI geometrical shapes, their surfaces possess a hand-painted look. This paintingly style philosophy was carried onto every visual element in the film, including the sky and the environments. Sanders took inspiration from classic Disney animated movies and the works of Hayao Miyazaki, resulting in a stylized CG visual style that he described as a Monet painting in a Miyazaki forest. Again, just want to jump in here, taking inspiration from Hayao Miyazaki. And I'm a newcomer to Studio Ghibli, but I absolutely love and adore it. And to hear that they would look into Hayao Miyazaki, look at his work, again, hand-drawn, but still incredibly emotive and powerful and beautiful and unique and creative. And taking inspiration from Hayao, as well as classic Disney, again, Beauty and the Beast, Lady and the Tramp, Little Mermaid, or even go as far as back as, a lot of their earlier works, like with, again, Bambi and things like that, the hand-drawn, the beauty of it. It all rings positivity bells in my head of like, look, the guy, he's on the right track. He's on the right track. If I'm looking at the trailer, he obviously knew what he was doing or knew what he wanted. So this all just paints a perfect picture in my mind. Again, how he calls it a Monet painting in the Miyazaki forest. I'm here for it. I'm sold. I'm done. He considered Bambi and My Neighbor Totoro as the biggest influences on the visuals. Again, I completely can see that. I can understand that. The works of Sid Mead served as an inspiration for the futuristic parts of the film. Sanders wanted Roz's design to be memorable and one that would take its place among fiction's most famous robots. Taking inspiration from C-3PO, R2-D2 from Star Wars, and Robbie the Robot from Forbidden Planet, he wanted Roz to have little facial articulation. Sanders and the rest of the design team made several prototype designs during production. One of the designers, Hugh, I feel like I'm pronouncing your name wrong. If I'm not, if I am or aren't, again, I do apologize, presented his Roz design to the crew, which became the basis for the one scene in the film. The crew immediately fell in love with Hugh's design, with Sanders describing it as a simple and appealing. Brown's original book described Roz with great detail, so Sanders and the team knew they had to leave some design elements out. Although on behalf of Brown's description of what a Rosum unit's purpose was to humans, they aimed for Roz's design to be more humanoid. And that is the lot for the production. So looking at the trailer, going through the motions again for when I first saw it, as well as reading the productions, I'm here for it. I'm completely sold. Like just on the visuals alone, and the way that the producer and the way that the creative team talks about it, there is no way that I can sit here and not be positive and not feel like, yeah, this film, even if the story's not very good, it could win me over on the visuals. So I guess I'm in. I guess I'm on board. Like you don't need to sell me anymore. Like I'm on. I'm ready for it. So. Yeah, I'm going to go off now and watch The Wild Robot. Fingers crossed it's more than just visuals. Fingers crossed it's a story as well. Like I've heard it's a very emotional story. It's a very heartfelt story. And the Peter Nyong'o does a brilliant job with the voice acting, and all the other cast do a brilliant job as well. So I'm sitting here, fingers crossed that it's not just me being sour, that this movie did deserve all the love and appreciation that it got. So without further ado, I'll see you in a minute. And welcome back, everybody. So it's been a few hours since I watched The Wild Robot. The reason being is, like, usually when I do a movie review, as soon as I've watched the film, I like that outer cinema experience, those first impressions. I like to go, as soon as I watch the movie, jump straight onto the mic and to record my sort of initial thoughts. I feel like that's a lot more real, a lot more organic. But with a movie like this, what I realised by the end of it, and by the end of it, I'll be honest, I was not really emotional, but this movie did make me cry and tear up a little bit. Was that this is sort of a film that you've got to sit with. You know, you've got to think about it. You've really got to mel over what has happened, what has taken place in the story. And that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to give myself a few hours just to really mellow over it, to really think about what this movie is. And honestly, first impressions is I had no reason to be sour. I could straight away from the get-go, from the beginning, I could understand as to why this movie was so loved and why it was so taken in by audiences and why it was recognized for so many awards. It's because visuals alone is absolutely gorgeous. It has that old-fashioned hand-drawn animation that I love, but sort of putting together with the lot more newer techniques, which is that's all they really need to do, to be honest, is to have that hand-drawn feel, but to make it feel new and present. That's all a lot of animated studios got to do. It hasn't got to be photorealistic. Hand drawn works perfectly, especially in this setting, in this environment where the story takes place, where it takes place on a small sort of wildlife environment. You want it to be very sort of hand drawn. It want to be rustic. It wants to be urban. It wants to be it doesn't need to be real, it just needs to feel alive. And how better to get that feeling with the hand drawn sort of technique, and for that it works brilliantly. So I understood straight away, and then the characters come into it, and then the story gets going, and you meet the main character Roz, and as she's trying to learn about her surroundings, she's trying to find somebody to give her a task, and as she's going around, she's not realizing, again, because she's not in her programming, to realize that there's nobody around. So she's like, well, if there's nobody around, I should leave. And then it kind of gets into the story. But you fall in love with every single character, and you get to know them organically. Like, it's not just the fact of, oh, hi, I'm so-and-so character, I'm Mr. Beaver. Nice to meet you, I'm your friend. Like, no. You get to know the characters, and the characters get to know Roz, and that trust and friendship starts to grow quite naturally to us over a period of time. And this is a wonderful story with incredible messages and visuals. Like, I remember back when I was younger, and I think I've made this point a few times, but I'll mention it again. One thing that I miss from animated cartoons and animated movies that I watched when I was younger is that there was a point, there was a message, there was an overarching theme. And again, I've used the example that, like, the Iron Giant, the whole point of you are what you choose to be. So you choose, you make the decision. That message really impacted me. And again, I've said it many times, that film is a cornerstone of my being, because the lessons and the messages that I learned from that film really was impactful to me and who I would end up being, as an adult, and how I treated people and how I treated myself and things like that. And there's loads more of other ones, but that's sort of the prime example that I use. And my argument was always the fact of, it feels like with a lot of animated movies, they've gone away from the messages. They've gone away from trying to teach a message by doing it in a fun way. A lot of them either just try to shove a message in your face, but so much so that it's too ham-fisted. It's too much like it's not happening organically. It just feels like, oh, this is bad, blah blah blah. Whereas, or they just don't have them at all. Whereas in this film, it's that idea of using survival as kindness, the naivety of the main character, of the robot, of Roz, her naivety of not knowing what she should and shouldn't do, and how to beat her programming, because she only knows one way to live, because that's what her programming tells her to do. She's just kind to, she's like Baymax, to be honest. She's just kind to everybody. She's trying to help everybody in ways, and again, while she's trying to help them, she doesn't realize that she's actually causing more trouble. And again, as she goes through the story, it's that idea of being unique, following your own path. You always be kind, no matter who it is, whether it be somebody who doesn't like you or being mean to you. Always choose kindness. Never choose revenge or greed or anything negative. Just always try to be positive. And for that message alone, it was absolutely wonderful. Because you had Roz, again, her naivety, and as she evolves through the story, she again becomes a lot more humble, and her voice changes, and she rewrites her own programming, and she becomes a more better version of herself, really, as well as being incredibly helpful. Then you have Fink, who, again, he is a predator. He's a fox. Nobody likes him because of what he is, because he's a fox at the end of the day. Kind of like Zootopia. Again, Nick in that story, he had the same sort of issue. Because he's a fox, nobody ever likes him. Every season is very sly and very untrustworthy and that sort of thing. And in this story, again, it's all just nature. The anything that's smaller or prey to a fox, he's going to hate the fox, and most people do hate the fox because he steals things and eats their eggs and things like that. So he's very much the other dynamic, where he's like, look, no one likes you, no one likes me, but you don't need to save them. And like Ross is like, no, we need to save everybody. We need to help everybody. And again, as the story goes on, they have a sort of a nice little cute sort of friendship, I would say. But yeah, I don't really want to get into the story at the moment, because we'll do that in a second. But the overall sort of impression is that it's really humble. It's really sweet. It's very lovely. The themes are incredible. And again, I just love the messages. It has the overarching message of of surviving with kindness, of being kind and being yourself and trying to help everybody that you can, as well as those other messages as well of you can do whatever they can do. And sometimes you can do what they can do, but better. Nobody can be better than you because you are you, you know. And a lot of all these messages, and it's really important to learn these messages at a very young age and a very sort of sort of sponge-like age where you kind of seep in everything around you. So it's very good to have a movie like this where young people can and watch it and take those subliminally, take those messages, take those lessons, and hopefully take them on board and realize that being me is okay. There's no, you know, to be kind is good, to be helpful is to good, and just to be a decent, you know, human being is again wonderful as well. And overall, just first impressions, just a wonderful film and a very emotional one, and it did make me cry at the end. Um, so for that, I can understand why this movie was so widely loved, and it does deserve all the awards. It really, really does. As for the story, so I've briefly mentioned it already, but um, Roz is trying her best to try to help people, but she can't. So what she does, because she's a robot, she learns the languages of the animals. So she sits there and she's really taking up notes and she's translating. Eventually, she can translate all the animal language and she can speak to all of them, and then they can speak to her. And she realizes that the way that they see her is she's the monster. She's a destroyer. She comes in and she's wrecking everything. So all the animals hate her as it is. And again, she's still very naive at this point, so she doesn't understand these emotions, these feelings. Again, she's a computer. She's a robot. She doesn't understand emotions like humans do, and or like animals do. And as she realizes this, she goes, well, if there's no one here for me to help, I should call home. So she tries to call home. She gets struck by lightning. She gets attacked by a bear, and then she ends up falling down a hill, and she falls onto a bird's nest, and she kills this goose, this mother goose, as well as a few of her eggs. But one survives. And one thing I do want to mention as well quickly is the fact that there's a lot of death in this film, like proper death. Like you don't see it, but there's death. There's people that are dying. You see heads. Like I think a fox or something jumps along and grabs a bird, and then the head falls and lands on Ross's hand and things like that. Like you do get these. There's very much about death, and me being a very death positive person, I was very much for it. I was like, yeah, that's good. That's another good thing, because again, death is another thing as a society that we shun. That we like, oh no, let's not talk about it. Let's not worry about it. It doesn't exist, but it does. It's all around us constantly. And I feel again, that's another thing of at a young age, if you can come to terms with the idea of death and mortality and things like, especially in the animal world, because like in the animal world, death is all around you. For example, you are prey to something else, so it's all about survival of the fittest. And again, that was a good message. I know it sounds a bit crazy to say, but it's a good message for a very young age for kids to learn this. But look, you know, death is a real thing, but it's okay. Don't worry about it. But you know, just be aware of it. And so I kind of had to commend it for that. So I just wanted to mention it. But yeah, so Roz, she's got this egg and she's holding it and it hatches in her hand. And obviously, because it's a little gosling, because a tiny little egg, tiny little sort of goose thing, gosling, I think that's the right word, it imprints on Roz, and that's his mum, and she doesn't know what to do, and she's like, look, you know, you're a bit of a pest, like I'm trying to find somebody to fulfill my task. And she finds this possum and all her kids, and the possum basically says to her, like, look, that is your task. Your task is to look after this little gosling, is because it's imprinted on you. It thinks you're its mom, so it won't leave your side, but it won't survive on its own. So your task that you're looking for is to make sure that this gosling survives. And then Ross is like, well, how? So the bone says, well, you basically have to make sure that it can swim, it can fly, and it leaves before the beginning of winter. Otherwise, it will die. So that's basically the premise of the story. And then you have Fink the fox, who's played by Pedro Pascal. Again, wonderfully done by Pedro, by the way. He does a brilliant job here. Fox, he tries to eat the egg. He's trying to eat the little gosling, and in the end, he realizes, well, actually, I'd actually benefit more from, instead of eating the gosling, of actually using Roz's kindness to my benefactory. So while so Ross is like, well, how do I feed the Gosling and thinks like, well, I know a way. So he's getting her to like get mussels and things out, and like she's trying to feed it to the Gosling. Gosling can't eat it, but he's, oh well, I'll eat it. Don't worry about it. So he uses her at first to kind of get what he wants, but he slowly starts to realize that this is more than just him getting warmth and getting shelter and getting protection and getting food. It's a bit more than that. It's a family that he never had. And as the story goes on, again, you realize more about things. The fact of like, look, I'm a fox. Nobody likes me. I have no friends. You are Roz. You are my only friend. And oh, what's his name? Is it Brightbeak? I think it's called Brightbeak. Yeah, Bright Bill. Sorry. And Bright Bill, you and Bright Bill are all I have. And once Bright Bill's gone for the summer, once he's gone for the winter, and then you leave, I'm going to be on my own again. It's very heartfelt and really, really well done by Pedro. And I don't want to go into more of the story, but it's a very sort of it's like a story done in different stages. The first stage is where Roz is trying to figure out her place in this little new world environment that she's in. Then her world changes where she's got the egg and she's got to look after the little Gosling and help it grow up and help it swim. And obviously she's trying to teach it like a human. So she's trying to teach it to, like, front stroke. Again, you can't teach a goose how to do that. They got a paddle. So he quickly starts to learn and that sort of thing. And there's a lot of emotional beats, a lot of moments, and I'm glued to the screen, and I'm getting emotional to the end of the story because I'm sitting there thinking, oh God, like this idea of, because there's ideas and concepts of love, and that like she doesn't need what's up here, up in her head, to tell her that she loves. Like it's in here, it's something inside all living things, and even though that she's got a metal heart, and even though she's not alive, she's still alive. She's smart enough to have a concept of idea of what love is. And as the story goes on, Lupita Long, whose character Roz, she changes, not just in mannerisms, but the voice changes. She goes from being sort of robot to, hi, I am Roz 7010 something 4. I'm here to help you and assist you as much as I can. Do you need assistance? Very much like Baymax. But as the story goes on, she goes very much from like robotic to motherly. She just talking calm, be like, it's okay. Bright Bill, I'm here for you. You'll get it. You can do whatever they can do, but better. Like don't put yourself down, because one thing I forgot to mention, Bright Bill, he was the runt of the litter. He would have died. Because again, the way it is in nature, in the wildlife, it's the runt of the litters. They don't survive. It's always the bigger, stronger ones that get the more food or get the more attention from the parents, because the parents realize like there's no point feeding this animal because it's going to die. So we'll feed the ones that will survive. It sounds cruel, but that's just how nature is. At the end of the day, that's just the nature of life, really, especially in the animal world, anyway. And she saved him, and it's very heartfelt, and she has a responsibility to him. And even when her task is complete and he's learned how to fly and he's part of the flock of geese now, even after all that, it's still you have that moment of like, well, I want to go home, but what am I going home to? Really, I don't know who made me. I don't know why I was here. All I know is I woke up here, and this is my life now. This is all I know. It's very emotional, and it's very heartfelt. And again, it comes back to what I was saying, is like, I understand through the voice acting, through the visuals, through the story, through the messaging, everything all together. I can understand now why this film became such a powerhouse, why it was a film that won so many awards, why it was a film that was nominated and talked about so much, not just in the wider sort of cinema going audience, but why so many other podcasters that I know of, and I sort of know quite closely, why they were all raving about this movie and why they were talking about it so highly, is because it is a genuinely pretty heartfelt and wonderful movie. It's probably one of the most original, and I know it was based off a book, but one of the most original sort of animated and honest and unique animated movies I've seen in a very, very long time. It's not a sequel. It's not trying to follow a formula or do anything like all the others do. It's trying to do something different, but it's just, yeah, it's brilliant. It's really, really good. And then you have the music as well. You have the music that really helps the story go along, and then you've got the visual design of it all, the hand drawn, and I just fell in love. I did. Like all of it was just a cacophony, a collection of just all the right things at the right moments. It reminded me like of the Iron Giant. I was reminded of classic animated movies and the messages, and I was just sitting there like I was thinking of so many different things of like again Baymax, um, the Iron Giant, and other sort of films like that. Like I was just like, wow, it's taken all the best bits from all some of the best sort of characters and the best animated movies, as well as it's done its own thing, as well as keeping the message. And it's one of these films that coming to a close now, coming to my overall thoughts that. I wish I had more films like this growing up. And don't get me wrong, I did have films like this that had messages, but it was movies like this. These are the kind of films that I grew up with. And I am glad that I've got it now at like 27, but I would have really appreciated a movie like this more so when I was a younger age, when I was looking for films like this, when I was looking for animated movies that had these strong themes and these strong messages and stories and that sort of thing. I would have appreciated it a lot more at a younger age. And I feel like if I can feel that at 27, then there has to be some little boy or little girl out there who watched this movie for the first time and was feeling that, not knowing what they were feeling, but knew that they were learning something, that they knew that something inside them was changing, that they were understanding the world a little bit better, perhaps, maybe. I don't know. Everybody's different, but yeah, it's a very wonderful and beautiful film, and I can understand now. I do get it. So I've got more hope now going into Flow because that was the one that won the Oscars. That was the one that won a lot of awards as well. So going into Flow as well, I've got my fingers crossed. I really do because I'm realizing now that with this movie being as good as it is and deserving of all the recognition that it gets, and again, I still obviously think that Transformers deserved all that love and recognition, but with that film, Transformers being Transformers and this film being this film, I am hopeful now with Flow. I really, really am. That I got my fingers crossed that hopefully, it can prevail and really do what I'm looking for and be deserving of it all. So yeah, so I don't really have any trivia for you today because the movie's relatively new. So no trivia. I haven't done trivia in a while, to be honest. So I've got to find a movie to do trivia to. But most of the trivia I said in the introduction anyway. But I am very humble with this film now. It's one of these, you can probably tell in my voice, I'm very calm, very chill, very humbled. I've just been able to experience such a wonderful film like this. I wouldn't say I want a sequel. I feel like this movie works perfectly on its own, and the way this movie ends, it kind of reminds me of Monsters Inc. If you've seen Monsters Inc. and how that movie ends, kind of the same ending here was the fact of I don't need to know what happens next. I can imagine what happens next, and to imagine is enough. Then is more powerful and better and enough than actually seeing. So for me, this movie is a one done, perfect. Doesn't need a sequel. And that kind of worried me as I was listening, watching the credits, and just sitting there contemplating, thinking, please don't do a TV series because they do. DreamWorks have known for doing that, so I'm like, please don't do a TV series. Don't do a sequel. Even this movie, does really, really well, which I think it did. Even all of that, just don't do a sequel unless you can think of a story that would make sense. It doesn't need it. One thing I want to mention as well before I wrap up here. I liked that the idea that it was set in the future, but it wasn't evidently how far into the future. It was just set into the future. And there was a few snippets where when you're following Bright Bill, going towards like migrating across like the planet, and he goes to like San Francisco, and the San Francisco bridge, it's underwater. The only things that are not submerged are the big spires. And again, you never see the city of San Francisco, but if you know the bridge, that's like underwater, and there's whales going through it, which was a really cool image. But again, it kind of sets the tone of like, okay, this is the future. And then you see another city in the distance, and again, that's all underwater. All that's really peeking out the water is just a few of the tops of the tallest skyscrapers. And then you see these like biodomes where humans are living now in these sort of environmentally controlled ecodomes. And then there's like harsh weather, really bad weather, storms, really high, huge waves, and like really bad snowstorms and stuff like that. And it's really setting the precedent of where they are without saying this is where we are, this is the year, this is how far, blah blah. that's it. It's none of that. It's just the fact of we're in the far future. The environment has changed. The planet has changed, and it affects humans, but it also affects the animals, and it affects the story and all of that. And I don't know. It was just one of those things where I really appreciated it. Like the fact of it was never mentioned. It was never sort of talked about. It was just the fact of in one little scene where like the snowstorm at the end of the film comes and Finnick, no, that's Hunger Games. Fink, he basically says, like, I've never seen a storm this bad before. None of us are going to survive this winter. And again, I'm not going to spoil what happens next, but it was that small bit of dialogue. But apart from that, like, it was never really hinted at. It was just the fact of we're in the future, and that's it. And I appreciated that because again, it allowed the imagination to wander, be like, okay, so what is it? Where are we? What's going on? Where are all the humans? Okay, I see the Golden Gate Bridge underwater. I don't need to see the city. I can imagine if the bridge is underwater, then the city is gone. And X, Y, and Z. Like I could just use my imagination and try to imagine as to what happened and why. And again, I appreciate that deeply. But anyway, that was just a small little thing that I wanted to mention. Thank you very, very much. Okay. Testing. 1, 2, 3. It's making sure I'm coming in loud and clear. Oh, all good. It seems like the static has dissipated and I'm coming in clear. So I am Luke from the future. Originally, I had planned to have a sort of a lot calmer ending to this episode. And I did. I had finished this episode. I had it all wrapped up and done. But I posted on X basically saying, like, I'm currently watching The Wild Robot, what everybody's thoughts on it, and I had a lot of people replying and a lot of people giving me their thoughts. And I thought, you know what? I'm just going to have to get rid of the original ending and put in here all people's original thoughts of what they thought about the movie. So, starting with the lovely people at Scaring Sam podcast, they said, we really loved it. Great story with a good message. Then we had Matt Spectro through the Multiverse podcast. He put, fantastic film. Wish I had seen it when it came out so I could have included it on my best of 24 list. This and the second Puss in Boots far superior to anything Disney has done in years. I agree with Matt there. I don't get me wrong, I love animated movies. I love Disney and Pixar, but I will admit, and I've said this probably many times on the podcast, that what Disney and Pixar are doing nowadays are very safe bets. Probably the last time they actually tried to do something different was Strange Worlds. Issue being is that nobody went to go see that movie. I really loved it and enjoyed it, but nobody went to go see it. But apart from that, they are not doing anything like this. DreamWorks have really been pushing the boundaries of not just technical in terms of visuals, but also in storytelling, in themes and stuff. And they're going back to what they did at the beginning when they first doing movies, like The Prince of Egypt and that. Those sort of films with the incredible music and the visuals and the story. And that's what DreamWorks was until Shrek came out, and it went more sort of again Disney-fied and things like that. But anyway, I do completely agree with him. What they did here is probably better than what Disney and Pixar have done in the last few years. Then we heard off the Myth Monsters podcast. They said, I loved it. I was really scared it was going to be about global warming. Open brackets, like I've heard Flo is, close brackets. And it put me off because it makes me too upset. But oh my God, what a great story and character. Again, I completely agree. I am of the same sort of inkling. I don't mind watching movies about climate change, but again, it does get to me. It does upset me because, again, I am sort of a bit of an eco warrior, or at least I try to be. I'm thinking of you, Marie. I'm thinking of you. I'm trying my best. But yeah, I get where she's coming from. And I mentioned it, obviously, in the review. And I wrote a comment back to her saying, like, I do mention it, but I do like that this movie, it doesn't say explicitly climate change, humans have destroyed the planet. It's more visually, it's more contextually. It's the fact if you're paying attention, you will notice these things. Like I said, with the Golden Gate Bridge and stuff like that. Like, I really appreciated that. It was like, it's not thrown in your face like humans have destroyed the planet. It's just the fact of times have changed. The planet has definitely gone through some sort of climate change, and that humans are now living in giant domes, and they're having robots to do everything for them. And again, giant, huge farms where the humans aren't growing the plants. The robots are cultivating and picking of the fruit and stuff like that, which again, it's all there for you to see. It's just, if you notice it or not, or you'll pay attention. So again, really, really love that. And I get where she was coming from, but I think the movie did a really good job of integrating that as well as telling the overarching story. Then we got Jack Alexander. He said, absolutely loved it. Probably my movie of the year. Again, I completely understand that. I get it. I understand why people loved it so much. Then we had the guys from the Stale Popcorn podcast. They said, cried 3 times. Best animated movie of 2024. Should have won the Oscar. I can't really agree or disagree with that at the moment because again I haven't seen Flow as of doing this, so I can't say if it does or doesn't. But again, I can see why it was up there and the nominations of being one of the best animated movies because visually it is stunning, and it's all down to the hand-drawn animation, and it goes to show that if a movie like this and movie like Puss in Boots 2, these kind of styles going back to what it was originally, what we all grew up with, it's still widely loved. It's not just on the nostalgia. It's loved because it looked different. It looked unique. And then when everybody started going CGI, that is what went back to. So I'm glad to think it's come back into style. It's going back into the trend, and it's showing the fact that people actually want to see movies that look like that instead of looking at movies that look like everything else that everybody else is doing, i.e. Disney and Pixar. You know what I mean? Like, want it to look like something different. So I hope that train keeps going, that people go, oh, this is what the audience wants to see, so we'll keep making movies that look like this. So I've got my fingers crossed for that. Then you've got Stu World Order. He said, my favorite movie of 2024, which again, I'm noticing a pattern here. People like, it's my favorite movie 2024. I absolutely loved it. So I'm noticing a pattern here. Then we had Robin Foley. If again, I do apologize if I butcher your last name, Robin. He is one of the incredible people at An Awful Lot of Running Doctor Who podcast. He writes, an absolutely stunning and heartwarming movie. Love it from start to finish. Again, as you can see, I'm starting to notice the patterns here. Dissect That Film podcast. They said a beautifully crafted story with some stellar animation and voice acting. Again, I completely agree. Visuals, absolutely incredible. Animation, smooth, buttery, gorgeousness, and the voice acting is top notch. All brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Then we had Zach. He said, loved it. Moments of feels. Who's cutting onions? ? Exclamation mark, question mark. I know, bro. I was tearing up at the end as well. Then we had Mac Bakori. Again, I do apologize if I'm butchering your last name. He went, my favorite film from last year. Somebody else commented, called Just Croc, with just the gif of Simon Cowell going, loved it. And that's it. But I just wanted to comment some of the things because people were being so positive and lovely about it. I just wanted to add them in the end. But I want to make this a regular thing. What I'm going to do is usually I'll post on the day of when I'm watching the movie or playing the game or reading the book or whatever it is. What I'm going to do the day before that I am planning to record and to watch the film, I'm going to release it on X saying, look, I'm currently watching The Wild Robot. What thoughts and feelings? If you have any thoughts and feelings on the movie or topic, please do write your comments of what you feel and what you think, because I want to shout them out. I want to give people shout outs, but I also at the same times I want to hear that feedback. I want to be able to comment on it as well. So more reason to follow me on X at Howdy Beans _pod, because I'll be posting there. So comment down below and I'll shout you out and I'll read out your comment. And it opens up a little bit of dialogue between listener and commentator, me, basically. So please do follow me on there as well. Of course, if you listen to this on YouTube, again, like, comment, and subscribe on there as well. I'd like to read out comments of previous episodes, so that'd be a wonderful thing to do. Yeah, that's everything, really. So make sure you follow me on X. Make sure that you like, comment, subscribe on YouTube. If you listen to this on Spotify, don't forget to leave a 5-star rating, as well as, drop a comment down below. And so that's everything. So again, thank you very much for listening to my review of The Wild Robot. Future Luke says hello, and past Luke says goodbye. So thank you very, very much for listening, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye-bye.